What if Tanjiro had activated the Demon Slayer mark in episode 1? Well, I spent weeks researching all the possible outcomes and have found 3 ways the stray most likely would play out, starting with the most unlikely and ending with the most likely. And for the first theory, Tanjiro historians, pretty quickly, now you might be a bit confused, but let me explain. You see, getting the mark so early on means that Tanjiro would be a lot stronger. If you'd had the mark since episode 1, he most likely would have had it since birth, like Yuriichi. It's also safe to assume that he'd have access to the transparent world, and selfless just like Yuriichi. He did okay. So Tanjiro is running down the mountain with Nezuko on his back, and they run into Gyu the Water Hashira. The story here goes on as normal until things take a drastic turn during the fight against Gyu. In the fight with Gyu, Tanjiro actually manages to win and kill Gyu. Might be thinking that this is impossible because he's the Water Hashira, but remember, Tanjiro almost did manage to kill with the axe he threw in the normal version. Now this might seem like a good thing for Tanjiro, right? Wrong. With Gyu dead, Tanjiro never learns that demons can't survive in sunlight and never meets Urokodaki in order to become a demon slayer after Gyu's death. It's very likely that either Nezuko kills Tanjiro due to Tanjiro not knowing how to handle a demon, or that one of the other Hashira come to seek out Tanjiro in order to get revenge for their fallen comrade. I mean, think about it. Would the Hashira just let him get away so easily? Nisako would also probably die by sunlight or get slammed by another Hashira. All of this would in turn lead to a ton of massive consequences for the Demon Court and the rest of the world. Without the strength of Tanjiro, the Demon Slayers would all probably be wiped out one by one. As for Zenitsu and Inosuke, they probably would meet but won't become friends in the battle with the Spider Demon Father. Inosuke would most likely die due to Gilo not being there to save him. Zenitsu would later die in the Entertainment District arc in the fight with QQ, Taro, and Daki along with Tengen and his wives. In the end, Muzan and his upper moons managed to defeat the entire Demon Slayer court and later take over the world as there's no longer anyone to stop him. Okay, this version of the story is very unlikely to happen, but for this second theory, things get a lot more interesting and it doesn't end the way you might think. Okay, so in the fight with you, the Water Hashira is impressed by Tanjiro's skills and sends the letter to Urokodaki, who later starts to train Tanjiro like in the anime. Now, Tanjiro being a lot stronger would mean that he quickly would master water breathing and breeze through the training with the Okodaki in the final selection. Fast forward to the Mountain Atagumo arc, Tanjiro would, with the help of Inosuke, easily kill the Spider Demon Father, which in turn means that both Inosuke and Tanjiro are present for the fight with Rui, the Lower Moon 5 demon. This fight would also be a lot easier, partly because Hinosuke is there, and partly because of Tanjiro's immense strength due to the mark. Their recovery in the Butterfly Mansion arc would also be a lot faster. The trio would later be sent to the Mugen Train, which is where things start to get interesting. Together with Rangoku, the trio makes quick work of Emo and moves on to a fight with Akasa. Rangoku and Tanjiro put up insane resistance against the fight with Akasa, and in the end, they managed to bring him down. In this version, they bring him down without Rangoku dying. Akasa's death would obviously alarm Muzan and make him furious, which leads him to holding an Upper Moon meeting. Moving on to the Entertainment District arc, things would change quite a lot here. The arc would start off as usual with Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu infiltrating 3 different houses. Everything would go on as normal until the fight against Daki and Gatato starts. At this point, Tanjiro is incredibly powerful and easily beheads Daki. After Daki gets beheaded, Gatato appears, and he too gets absolutely outclassed by Tenjito and Tengen. And within a small amount of time, Gatato gets beheaded. In this scenario, Tengen doesn't get as badly injured as he does in the original anime. This means that he never retires, and the Demon Slayer Corps have one more Hashira that they wouldn't have normally. At this moment in time, both Rengoku and Tenji are alive and well simply because Tanjiro was born with the Demon Slayer mark. Later on in the Swordsmith Village arc, everything would play out mostly the same, except that it would go a lot better and faster for the Demon Slayers, as Tanjiro basically has mastered sun breathing at this point. Now this is where the story takes a crazy turn. You see, at this point, Tanjiro will be almost as strong as the legendary Yuriichi, the man that almost managed to kill Muzan, the Demon Slate. Your core would also be a lot stronger due to the fact that both Rengoku and Tengen are still alive and working as Demon Slayers. Muzan, of course, would notice this and do what? Go into hiding. Of course. Remember, this is the same thing that happened when he realized that Yuriichi was too strong to handle. He went into hiding only to come back. After being 100% certain that Yuriichi was no longer a threat, he'd simply go into hiding until Tanjiro and the current Demon Slayer Corps were all dead, and then reappear to continue his search for the Blue Spider Lily. In this version, all the Demon Slayers survive and live happy lives until the day Muzan comes back to haunt the next generations. If you want to stop Muzan, you should press the juicy red subscribe button down below. Finally, let's move on to the most likely theory. And in this theory, Tanjiro doesn't end up training with a Rokodaki. Okay, Tanjiro is yet again running down the mountain with Nezuko on his back and runs into Gi. Tanjiro's crazy strength makes the fight very tough for Jiu, but in the end Guy wins. However, Jiu is incredibly impressed by Tanjiro's strength and decides to make an absolutely insane decision. He decides to train Tanjiro and makes him his Sugoku instead of sending him to Rokudaki. Nezuko, on the other hand, still gets sent to Urokodaki. The training under Guy would go as smoothly as ever. Tanjiro would easily master water breathing and move on to the final selection exam. One important detail here is that Tanjiro would never be asked to cut a boulder in half as he did with the Urokodakai. This would mean that he might never meet Sabito in Makomo, which is pretty sad. Tanjiro would breeze through the final selection, easily beheading the demons that killed Sabito and later easily chopping off the heads of the Lower Moon Rui and the Spider Demon Father, even before Gayu and Shinobu arrives, due to Tanjiro being way stronger than really. He doesn't unlock his sun breathing just yet as he wasn't pushed to his limits. Moving on to the Mugen Train arc, things go even better here and Tanjiro cuts off and moves head without any problems, but when Akaza comes, things get a bit harder. Rangoku and Tanjiro manage to push Akaza to his limits and put up an insane fight. In the end, Tanjiro gets flashbacks from his late father performing the Hinkami Kaukura, just like he did at Mount Nanagumo in the original anime, unlocks sun breathing and manages to cut off Akaza's head, this time without Rengoku having to die. Now at the Hashiro meeting, Kagaya notices the mark on Tanjiro's forehead and explains to him his importance for the Demon Slayer Corps. Tankido's strength gets acknowledged by Kagaya here, and he becomes the Sun Hashiro. Crazy, I know. Fast forward to the Entertainment District art Tanjiro. With the help of Zenitsu, Inosuke and Tenkin make quick work of Daki. When Gedata appears, things obviously become harder, but still is no match for Tanjiro. This means the Tenjin doesn't retire in this version either, and he isn't as badly injured as in the original version due to Tanjiro's help. At this point, Tanjiro's strength is coming closer and closer to the same level as the legendary demon slayer Yorichi. In the Swordsmith Village arc, Tanjiro easily kills Hanting even before Misuri arrives, which means that Misuri doesn't awaken her own demon slayer mark, as she doesn't get to fight. The rest of the arc plays out pretty much the same with Mumichiro the Mistashira killing Yoko. Now in the Infinity Castle, Argyu and Tanjiro will fight. Dama alongside Shinobu is a cause that no longer is live to fight the two even before Kanayo and Ninosuke arrived. The Sun Hashiro Tanjiro uses his immense strength to kill Domo with the help of the insect Hashiro, Shinobu, and water, Hashirage. On the other hand, Rengoku, Tengen, Sanemi, Muichiro Jinya, and Yomi are fighting Kokushibo together. Kokushibo being the Upper Moon 1 demon, things won't be that easy. However, with the extra help, the fight becomes a lot more manageable for the Hoshida. Because Tanjito quickly wrapped up the fight with Noma, he's able to join the fight with Kokushiba and eventually kill him as well. Now for the final battle against Musan, where things are quite different from the original story. In this version, all of the original Hoshida will be fighting against Musan alongside Tanjito. The other giant change is the fact that Tankido never becomes a demon in this version, as he's way out of Muzan's league. Now one person does die, and that person is Gyomei due to overusage of this demon slayer. Mark Guillaume dies, everyone else would survive and the story hands on. A good note. Now these theories were pretty crazy,